At 0247 hours on September 15, 1944, Staff Sergeant Raymond Kowalski crouched in his foxhole 3 miles outside St. Lo, France, listening to German soldiers move through the darkness toward his position. 30 yards out, maybe closer. He could hear boots on wet grass, could hear whispered commands in German, could hear the metallic click of equipment shifting on web gear. His hand rested on the warning rope that connected to the foxhole on his left. 1 tug would alert Private Leonard Russo. 2 tugs meant Germans close. Kowalski didn't tug the rope. He waited. The temperature was 43 degrees, no moon. Visibility maybe 10 feet in the absolute darkness. The kind of night where you couldn't see your own hand in front of your face. The kind of night where German infiltration teams did their best work. 25 yards now. The whispered German voices stopped. Complete silence, except for the wind moving through the hedgerows. Standard German procedure. Advance 10 yards, freeze, listen for American movement. If they heard nothing, advance another 10 yards. Keep repeating until they were close enough to throw grenades into American foxholes. Kowalski's M1 Garand rifle was loaded. 8 rounds in the magazine. Safety off. But he couldn't see anything to shoot at. None of the Americans could. Darkness was the Germans' advantage. Had been for weeks. 20 yards. The Germans were moving again. Slow, professional. These weren't conscripts or green replacements. These were Wehrmacht veterans who'd been killing American soldiers in their sleep for 6 weeks straight. 15 yards. Kowalski heard a boot scrape on mud, then another. They were almost at the perimeter. Almost at the tripwire he'd rigged 8 hours earlier. The tripwire his platoon sergeant had specifically ordered him not to install. The tripwire that was about to kill everything in a 20-foot radius. Metallic sound, wire catching a boot, 1 second of silence. Then the first grenade detonated. The problem started 6 weeks earlier. September 1st, 1944. First Army was pushing east from Normandy toward the German border. Progress was steady but costly, not from major battles or German counterattacks. From something simpler and more terrifying. Night infiltration. The Wehrmacht had perfected a tactic in Italy, refined it in France. Send small teams forward after 0200 hours, 3 to 5 men per team. Move silently through American lines. Locate foxholes, throw grenades, withdraw before Americans could organize a response. It was devastatingly effective. American defensive doctrine assumed soldiers could see threats coming, could challenge approaching contacts, could return fire, but darkness reduced visibility to 15 feet on moonless nights. By the time a sentry heard movement and challenged, German grenadiers were already throwing. 3 seconds from detection to detonation. Not enough time to react. Not enough time to take cover. Not enough time to survive. First Army recorded 117 casualties from night grenade attacks between August 1st and September 14th. 117 men killed or wounded by an enemy they never saw. Most died without firing a shot. Many died in their sleep. The statistics were worse than they appeared. 117 casualties meant 117 holes in defensive lines. Meant surviving soldiers were exhausted from rotating watch more frequently. Meant morale dropped every time Germans hit another position. Meant American soldiers were afraid to sleep. Command kept sending the same orders. Maintain noise discipline. Stay alert. Rotate sentry duty every 2 hours instead of 4. Challenge all contacts. Fire on suspicious movement. The orders assumed exhausted soldiers could somehow see better in complete darkness. Assumed human reflexes could defeat German grenades. Assumed vigilance was enough. It wasn't. The German technique was mechanical in its precision. Approach during the darkest hours. Move during wind or rain when sound carried poorly. Stay low, stay quiet. Get within 10 feet of American foxholes. Throw grenades. Run. 4.5 seconds from throw to detonation. Americans had maybe 2 seconds to realize what was happening. Not enough time to find the grenade in darkness. Not enough time to throw it back. Not enough time to get away. The mathematics of the situation were brutal and simple. German initiative versus American reaction. Initiative always won. Kowalski's platoon learned this the hard way. September 6, 1944. 0313 hours. Private Danny Chen was on sentry duty in a foxhole 40 yards from Kowalski's position. 19 years old. Farm kid from Iowa. He'd survived Omaha Beach on June 6th. Survived 2 months of hedgerow fighting. Survived everything the Germans had thrown at him in daylight. Germans approached his foxhole from the north. Standard 2-man infiltration team. They crawled through the grass, took 15 minutes to cover 30 yards. Professional, patient. Chen heard movement at 12 feet. He challenged, "Halt! Who goes there?" The Germans threw 2 grenades immediately. Chen tried to fire his M1 Garand. The rifle was still on safety. His muscle memory failed him. Panic and darkness and exhaustion. He fumbled with the safety lever. The grenades detonated. Chen died with his rifle still on safety. Never fired a round. His foxhole partner, Private Eddie Morrison from Kansas, survived with shrapnel wounds to his legs and back. Morrison spent 4 months in a hospital in England. Never returned to combat. September 9th, 0248 hours. Corporal James Mitchell was the platoon's best marksman. 22 years old, California. He could hit targets at 500 yards in daylight. Had 16 confirmed kills, respected by everyone in the company. Germans crawled within 8 feet of Mitchell's foxhole before he heard them. 3-man team this time. Mitchell reacted faster than Chen had. Safety off, rifle up, fired 3 rounds in 2 seconds. Hit nothing. Couldn't see targets in absolute darkness. Was shooting at sound, at movement, at ghosts. The Germans threw 4 grenades. 2 landed in Mitchell's foxhole. 2 landed in the adjacent position. Mitchell died instantly. So did his foxhole partner, Private Thomas Cole from Georgia. The adjacent foxhole held 2 men from 2nd Squad. Both wounded, 1 critically. 4 casualties from 1 German team. The Germans escaped without taking fire. September 11th, 0321 hours. Private First Class Robert Hayes and Private Thomas Beck shared a foxhole on the platoon's left flank. Both 20 years old, both from Texas. They'd been best friends since basic training at Camp Walters, volunteered for the same unit, requested the same squad, fought side by side through Normandy. German team approached from the west. 5 men this time. Larger team, more ambitious. They'd identified the foxhole as a key position, wanted to eliminate it decisively. Hayes was on watch. Beck was sleeping. Neither heard the Germans until they were 6 feet away. The Germans threw 4 grenades simultaneously into the foxhole, then withdrew immediately. Hayes managed to scream, "Grenade!" before the first one detonated. Beck woke up and died in the same second. Neither man had time to react, to fight, to survive. The explosion was loud enough that Kowalski heard it from 40 yards away. Loud enough that the entire platoon woke up. Loud enough that everyone knew what had happened. Kowalski helped carry the bodies to Graves registration the next morning. September 12th, 0800 hours. Kowalski stood next to the Graves registration tent watching a corporal tag Hayes and Beck's bodies. 23 years old, staff sergeant, 2 months in combat, 2 months watching good soldiers die in situations they couldn't control. He'd been thinking about the problem for weeks. The pattern was mechanical in its consistency. Darkness plus German grenades equals American casualties. No amount of vigilance could defeat physics. No amount of training could give soldiers night vision. No amount of courage could make human reflexes faster than grenades. American soldiers were reacting to German initiative. Reaction time would always lose. Kowalski had worked at Ford Motor Company before the war, River Rouge plant in Detroit. Started in 1938 when he was 16 years old. Assembly line maintenance, safety systems division. His job was preventing industrial accidents through mechanical design. Emergency shutoffs, barrier guards, automatic brakes. The principle was simple. Assume workers will make mistakes. Protect them anyway. Create systems that made accidents survivable. Systems that didn't require perfect human performance. In 1941, a press operator lost 3 fingers when he reached into an active machine. Kowalski designed a barrier guard that made the accident physically impossible. The system didn't require the operator to be careful. It made carelessness survivable. Saved 11 fingers over the next 9 months. He'd been drafted in February 1943. Infantry training at Camp Croft, South Carolina. Landed in Normandy on June 10, 1944. 4 days after D-Day, assigned to Company B, 1st Battalion, 26th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division. Now he stood watching Graves' registration process Hayes and Beck's bodies. Watching medics record cause of death. Grenade, enemy, night action. Watching them zip the bodies into rubberized bags for transport to a temporary cemetery. 4 men dead in 8 days. Chen, Mitchell, Cole, Hayes, Beck, good soldiers. Kids who'd survived Normandy only to die in French foxholes because they couldn't see threats coming. The pattern was mechanical. The solution had to be mechanical too. That night, Kowalski couldn't sleep. He lay in his foxhole thinking about tripwires and grenades and automatic defenses. Thinking about systems that protected soldiers even when they couldn't protect themselves. Thinking about ways to kill Germans before Germans could kill Americans. By dawn on September 13th, he had an idea that would either save lives or get him court-martialed. Possibly both. Raymond Kowalski started at Ford Motor Company in October 1938. 16 years old. Lied about his age on the application. Said he was 18. Nobody checked. River Rouge plant in Dearborn, Michigan. The largest integrated factory in the world. 100,000 workers. 16 million square feet of manufacturing space. Everything from raw iron ore to finished automobiles produced on site. Kowalski got assigned to Building B. Assembly line maintenance. Night shift. His supervisor was a man named Frank Kozlowski, 48 years old, missing 2 fingers on his left hand from a press accident in 1927. Kozlowski taught Kowalski the first rule of factory work. Machines don't care if you're tired, don't care if you're distracted, don't care if you make mistakes. Machines just do what they're designed to do. If your hand is in the wrong place when the press comes down, you lose the hand. The second rule: good design assumes workers will make mistakes. Protects them anyway. Kowalski spent 3 years learning safety systems. Emergency shutoffs that killed power when workers got too close to dangerous equipment. Barrier guards that made it physically impossible to reach into active machinery. Automatic brakes that stopped conveyor belts if tension exceeded safe limits. The principle was consistent. Don't rely on human perfection. Rely on mechanical systems that made imperfection survivable. In March 1941, a press operator named Eddie Sullivan reached into an active stamping machine to clear a jammed part. Standard procedure was to shut down the machine first. Sullivan forgot, or was in a hurry, or thought he could grab the part quickly. The press came down, Sullivan lost 3 fingers. Middle ring pinky on his right hand. Kowalski's supervisor assigned him to design a solution. Something that made Sullivan's mistake impossible. Something that protected workers even when they violated safety procedures. Kowalski spent 2 weeks studying the problem. The stamping machine operated on a mechanical cycle. Press up, press down. 8 cycles per minute. Workers loaded sheet metal. Press stamped it into shape. Workers removed the finished part. The danger zone was the space between the upper and lower press surfaces. 12 inches of clearance when the press was raised. 0 inches when it was down. Anything in that space when the press descended got crushed. Sullivan had reached into the danger zone while the machine was cycling. The press descended on his hand. 3 fingers severed cleanly. Could have been his entire hand. Could have been his arm. Kowalski designed a barrier guard. 2 metal bars on springs, positioned 6 inches in front of the press. If a worker's hand pushed past the bars, the springs triggered a mechanical interlock. The press stopped immediately. Wouldn't cycle until the interlock reset. The system was foolproof. Workers could still load and unload parts. But they couldn't reach into the danger zone while the machine was active. The mechanical interlock prevented it. Kowalski installed the first prototype in April 1941. Tested it for 2 weeks. Worked perfectly. By June, every stamping machine in Building B had the barrier guard installed. Over the next 9 months, the system prevented 11 finger amputations. Workers still made mistakes, still reached into active machines, still violated safety procedures. But the barrier guard stopped them before the press could. Mechanical protection, automatic. Didn't require workers to be perfect, just required the system to work. Kowalski got promoted to Safety Systems Specialist in December 1941. 19 years old, good pay, respected position, future at Ford, looked solid. Then came Pearl Harbor. Kowalski registered for the draft in February 1943. 21 years old, married to Helen, his high school sweetheart. No children yet, no deferment available. Ford war production was critical, but they had enough workers. Infantry training at Camp Croft, South Carolina. 16 weeks. Basic rifle marksmanship, squad tactics, physical conditioning. Nothing about safety systems or mechanical design. Everything about killing people efficiently. He was good at it. Scored expert on the rifle range. Understood how weapons functioned mechanically. M1 Garand rifle was just a machine. Gas-operated, semi-automatic, 8-round internal magazine. Maintained properly, it functioned reliably. Neglected, it jammed. Most soldiers treated weapons like magic. Kowalski treated them like Ford stamping machines. Mechanical systems that required proper maintenance and operated according to physical laws. His drill sergeant noticed. Promoted him to squad leader. By the end of training, Kowalski was staff sergeant. Squad leader position in a rifle company. Responsible for 12 men. Deployed to England in February 1944. More training. Amphibious assault rehearsals. Landed in Normandy on June 10th. 4 days after D-Day. Omaha Beach was already secured. The hedgerow fighting was just beginning. Kowalski learned combat wasn't like factory work. In a factory, you could design systems to prevent accidents. In combat, people were trying to kill you. No amount of mechanical design could stop a bullet with your name on it. But some principles still applied. Good tactics assumed soldiers would make mistakes. Good equipment was reliable under stress. Good systems worked automatically without requiring perfect execution. By September, Kowalski had watched 4 men in his platoon die from German night attacks. Watched them die because darkness defeated human reflexes, because reaction time lost to initiative, Because the defensive system relied on soldiers seeing and reacting faster than physics allowed. The system was broken, needed redesign. September 12, 1944, 2100 hours. Kowalski sat in his foxhole thinking about Eddie Sullivan's fingers, about the barrier guard that saved 11 hands, about mechanical systems that protected workers automatically. What if foxholes had the same protection? What if you didn't need to see Germans approaching? What if you didn't need to react in 3 seconds? What if the defensive system worked automatically? He thought about tripwires. Germans used them constantly. Booby traps on doors, windows, supply caches, perimeter alarms around defensive positions, pressure-activated mines on trails. Simple technology that had been around since the First World War. Maybe longer. The principle was basic. Wire under tension connected to a trigger. Anything disturbing the wire activates the system. Could be an alarm. Could be a mine. Could be anything. What if you connected tripwires to grenades? Create a defensive perimeter around each foxhole. String wire at ankle height, maybe 20 feet out. Attach grenades to stakes. Connect the grenade pins to the wire. Anyone walking through the perimeter would catch the wire with their boot. Wire tension would pull the pins. Grenades would detonate automatically. Defense faster than offense. Mechanics beating biology. Kowalski pulled his notebook from his field jacket. Drew a quick diagram by flashlight. Foxhole at center. 6 grenades in a semicircle, 20 feet out. 120-degree arc covering the most likely German approach. Each grenade spaced 12 feet apart. Single wire connecting all 6 grenades. Wire threaded through each grenade pin ring. Tension on any part of the wire would pull all 6 pins simultaneously. M2 fragmentation grenade had a 4.5-second fuse delay. If someone triggered the wire, all 6 grenades would detonate within 1.3 seconds of each other. Overlapping kill zones. Anyone in that perimeter would die. The mathematics were straightforward. M2 grenade had lethal radius of 15 meters, casualty radius of 30 meters. 6 grenades with overlapping coverage meant nothing survived in a 200-square-foot area. Shrapnel velocity was 4,000 feet per second. Germans wouldn't have time to run, wouldn't have time to take cover. 4.5 seconds from pin pull to detonation. By the time they realized what happened, they'd be dead. Automatic defense, mechanical protection. Didn't require Kowalski to see anything. Didn't require him to react. Just required Germans to walk into the perimeter. The system assumed Germans would approach. Protected American soldiers automatically when they did. Same principle as the Ford barrier guard. Assume the threat will happen. Design protection that works mechanically. September 13th, 0800 hours. Kowalski found his platoon sergeant after morning chow. Staff Sergeant William Rodriguez, 32 years old. Texas. Professional soldier. Enlisted in 1934. 10 years in the Army. Respected by everyone in the company. Rodriguez was cleaning his Thompson submachine gun when Kowalski approached. "Sergeant, I need to talk to you about defensive positions." Rodriguez looked up. "What about them?" "The German night attacks. I think I have a solution. Command's already working on it. More frequent sentry rotation, better noise discipline." "That's not a solution," Kowalski said. "That's the same thing we've been doing. It's not working." Rodriguez set down the Thompson. "What's your idea?" Kowalski explained the tripwire grenade system, the perimeter, the mechanical trigger, the automatic defense. Rodriguez stared at him for 10 seconds. "That's the dumbest idea I've heard all year." "Sergeant, you'll kill your own men." Some private stumbling back from the latrine at 0300 hours triggers your death trap. Dies before he realizes what happened. We'd only activate the system during alert hours, 0200 to 0500, when Germans attack. You're talking about booby-trapping our own defensive positions. I'm talking about killing Germans before they kill us. Rodriguez stood up, walked closer to Kowalski, looked him directly in the eye. Listen to me carefully, Staff Sergeant. What you're describing violates Field Manual 5-31, unauthorized explosive devices in defensive areas. That's a court-martial offense. Hayes and Beck are dead because we can't see Germans in the dark. Hayes and Beck are dead because that's what happens in war. Good men die, that's the job. It doesn't have to be that way. Yes, it does. Rodriguez's voice was hard now, final. Besides, your system wouldn't work. Wire would be visible in daylight. Germans would see it, cut it, neutralize the whole thing. Or worse, they'd turn it against us, use our own trap to kill us. We rig it after dark, only activate it at night, clear it before dawn. Forget it, Kowalski. That's an order. Sergeant, that's an order, Staff Sergeant. You're a good soldier, good mechanic. Stick to fixing trucks and let real soldiers handle tactics. Rodriguez picked up his Thompson, walked away. Conversation over. September 13th through 14th. Kowalski obeyed Rodriguez's order for 24 hours. Didn't rig any tripwires, didn't modify any grenades, followed procedure. But he couldn't stop thinking about Hayes and Beck, about Chen and Mitchell, about the next night attack that was definitely coming, about more good soldiers dying because they couldn't see threats in darkness. Rodriguez was wrong about one thing. This wasn't about tactics. It was about engineering, creating a system that worked automatically, protecting soldiers who couldn't protect themselves, using mechanical principles to solve a mechanical problem. In a factory, you assumed workers would make mistakes. You designed protection anyway. In combat, you assumed enemies would attack. You designed defenses that worked regardless. The Ford barrier guard didn't ask workers to be perfect. It made imperfection survivable. The tripwire system wouldn't ask soldiers to see in the dark. It would kill Germans automatically when they approached. Same principle, different application. September 14th, 1900 hours. Kowalski made his decision. He'd build the system, test it on his own foxhole. If it worked, he'd prove Rodriguez wrong, save American lives, maybe change how the entire army defended positions at night. If it failed, he'd face court-martial alone. Take full responsibility. Wouldn't drag anyone else down with him. Better than watching more men die while doing nothing. Better than following orders that got soldiers killed. Better than waiting for the next Hayes and Beck. He checked his watch. 19-15 hours. 6 hours until Germans would likely attack. 6 hours to build a defensive system that had never been tested in combat. 6 hours to find out if a Ford mechanic could redesign warfare. September 14th, 1944. 1930 hours. Kowalski needed 6 fragmentation grenades. M2 model. Pineapple design. Serrated cast iron body. Weight, 21 ounces. Explosive filler, 2 ounces of EC powder. Fuse delay, 4.5 seconds. Lethal radius, 15 meters. Casualty radius, 30 meters. The ammunition supply point was a reinforced dugout 200 yards behind the main defensive line. Stacked crates of rifle ammunition, mortar rounds, grenades, Bangalore torpedoes. Everything a rifle company needed to kill Germans. Private Eddie Carson was on supply duty that evening, 18 years old. Nebraska farm kid, nervous, jumped at loud noises, had been in France for 3 weeks, hadn't fired his rifle in combat yet. Kowalski approached the dugout carrying a requisition clipboard he'd borrowed from the company clerk. "Need grenades for tomorrow's patrol," Kowalski said. Carson looked at the clipboard, didn't read it carefully. Most privates didn't question staff sergeants. "How many, Sergeant?" "6. Carson pulled a crate from the stack, opened it. 12 grenades packed in sawdust. He counted out 6, handed them to Kowalski one at a time. "Sign here, Sergeant." Kowalski signed the requisition form, used his left hand, made the signature illegible. Carson filed the form without checking it. 6 grenades. Secured. Nobody had noticed. Nobody would notice. Supply tracking was loose during active operations. Grenades went missing all the time. Used in combat, lost in transit, misplaced during movement. 6 grenades wouldn't raise questions. 1945 hours. Next problem, wire. Kowalski needed approximately 18 feet of wire. Needed to be strong enough to pull grenade pins under tension. Needed to be flexible enough to string at ankle height without sagging. Copper wire was ideal. 20 gauge. Standard electrical wire. He found what he needed in a shell crater 50 yards north of the American line. Destroyed German Torn. FUD-2 radio set. Model 1942. Portable field radio. Americans had hit the position with artillery 2 days earlier. The radio operator was dead. The radio was scrap. But the internal wiring was intact. Kowalski pulled the back panel off the radio chassis. Inside, approximately 30 feet of 20-gauge copper wire connecting components. He cut 18 feet free, using his wire cutters, wound it into a coil, tucked it into his field jacket. The wire smelled like burned insulation and cordite. His hands were black with carbon residue from the destroyed radio. Nobody saw him. The crater was outside the defensive perimeter in no man's land. Dangerous to visit during daylight. Nobody went there unless absolutely necessary. 2,000 hours. Additional materials needed. 6 wooden stakes, hammer, wire cutters, friction tape. Stakes were available at the engineer supply dump. Wooden pickets, 30 inches long, 2 inches diameter, pointed on one end. Used for stringing communication wire, marking positions, building field fortifications. The engineer supply sergeant was a corporal from Ohio named Vincent Marsh, 43 years old. Too old for infantry, assigned to support duties. "Need some stakes, Corporal." Marsh gestured to a pile of several hundred stakes. "Help yourself, Sergeant." Kowalski selected 6, checked them for cracks, rot, structural weakness. Needed stakes that would hold under tension. Found 6 good ones, carried them back to his foxhole. Hammer came from his entrenching toolkit, standard Army issue. Pickaxe on one end, spade on the other. The flat side of the pickaxe worked as a hammer, good enough for driving stakes. Wire cutters and friction tape were in Kowalski's maintenance bag. Tools he'd carried since Normandy, used for field repairs on weapons, equipment, vehicles. Everything assembled, everything ready. Time to build the system. 2,100 hours. Kowalski sat behind his foxhole with his notebook. Drew detailed diagrams by flashlight. His foxhole partner, Private Leonard Russo, watched him work. Russo was 21 years old, Brooklyn, Italian family, nervous about everything. Asked questions constantly. "What are you doing, Sergeant?" "Working." "On what?" "Insurance." The diagram showed precise measurements. Foxhole at center point. 6 grenades arranged in semicircular arc. Arc covered 120 degrees. Aimed northwest, the direction Germans typically approach from. Grenade 1, 20 feet out, far left position. Grenade 2, 12 feet right of grenade 1. Grenade 3, 12 feet right of grenade 2. Pattern continued. 6 grenades total, 72 feet of arc. each position marked with exact measurements. Tripwire height, 9 inches above ground. Standard ankle height for a man walking upright. Low enough that crawling wouldn't trigger it. High enough that walking would. Wire tension calculation. Approximately 3 pounds of force required to pull an M2 grenade pin. Wire needed enough tension to pull 6 pins simultaneously when triggered. Approximately 18 pounds of force total. Copper wire rated for 50 pounds tensile strength. Safety margin adequate. Fuse timing. 4.5 seconds from pin pull to detonation. Human reaction time, 0.25 seconds to recognize threat. 0.75 seconds to decide action. 1.5 seconds to execute movement. Total, 2.5 seconds. Insufficient time to escape 15-meter lethal radius. The mathematics were perfect. The system would work. Assuming Kowalski could install it correctly in complete darkness. 2,200 hours. Full darkness now. No moon. Overcast sky. Visibility approximately 8 feet. Temperature, 43 degrees. Wind, light, variable from northwest. Kowalski assembled his materials. 6 grenades, 6 stakes, 18 feet of copper wire, hammer, wire cutters, friction tape, 1 flashlight with red lens filter. Russo watched him prepare. "Sergeant, what are you doing?" "Building something." "What?" "A trap." "For what?" "Germans." Russo's eyes widened. "Rodriguez is going to kill you." "Rodriguez isn't here." "He ordered you not to do this." "He ordered me not to do something stupid." "This isn't stupid." "How is booby-trapping our own foxhole not stupid?" Kowalski looked at Russo directly. "Germans killed Hayes and Beck 4 days ago. They'll try again tonight. Maybe they'll hit our position. Maybe they'll hit someone else's. Either way, more Americans die. So you're going to blow them up first." "That's the idea." "What if you blow us up instead?" "The wire is 20 feet out. We stay in the foxhole. We're safe." "What if I need to take a piss?" "Use the slit trench behind us. Don't walk forward." Russo shook his head. "You're insane." "Probably." Kowalski picked up the first grenade and stake. Crawled forward into darkness. 22:15 hours. 20 feet from the foxhole. Kowalski couldn't see his own hand in front of his face. Used the red-filtered flashlight sparingly. Too much light would draw German attention. Snipers watched for flashlights. Machine gunners targeted them. He paced the distance by counting steps while crawling. Each crawl step covered approximately 2 feet. 10 crawl steps equals 20 feet. At the 20-foot mark, Kowalski stopped. Set down the grenade carefully. Positioned the stake. Raised the hammer. Driving stakes in darkness was difficult. Couldn't see the target clearly. Had to work by feel, by sound, by experience. First strike. Hammer connected with stake top. The impact was loud. Too loud. Kowalski froze. Listened for German reaction. Nothing. Wind covered the sound, or Germans weren't close enough to hear. Second strike. Stake drove 6 inches into French mud. Third strike. Stake was secure. 18 inches above ground. 12 inches in the ground. Stable. Kowalski used friction tape to secure the grenade to the stake. Wrapped tape around the grenade body and stake. 3 complete wraps. Tight. The grenade wouldn't shift or fall. Next step, modify the pin. M2 grenade pin was a simple design. Curved steel pin with a ring on one end. The pin held the striker lever in place. Pull the pin, release the lever. Striker hits the primer, fuse ignites, grenade detonates 4.5 seconds later. Kowalski threaded copper wire through the pin ring. Looped it twice. Twisted it secure. The wire was now attached to the pin. Pulling the wire would pull the pin. First grenade complete. Time elapsed. 8 minutes. 5 more to go. 22:30 hours. Kowalski moved to position 2, 12 feet right of position 1. Paced the distance by crawling parallel to the foxhole line. Counted steps. 6 crawl steps equals 12 feet. Hammered the second stake, secured the second grenade, threaded wire through the second pin ring. Position 3, 12 feet right. Same process. Position 4, position 5, position 6. By 2300 hours, all 6 grenades were in position. 6 stakes driven, 6 grenades secured, 6 pins modified. Kowalski's hands were covered in mud and friction tape adhesive. His knees ached from crawling on rocky ground. His back hurt from staying low. His ears strained for any sound of German movement. Nothing yet. Germans usually attacked after 0200 hours. 3 hours away. 3 hours to complete the critical step. Connecting the tripwire. 23:15 hours. The wire connection was the most dangerous part. Required threading copper wire through all 6 grenade pin rings in series. Required maintaining proper tension. Too loose. The wire wouldn't pull pins. Too tight. Wind or settling ground might trigger it accidentally. Kowalski started at position 1, the leftmost grenade. Uncoiled the 18-foot copper wire. One end threaded through the first pin ring. Wrapped it twice. Twisted it secure. Ran the wire to position 2, 9 inches above ground. Used small twigs as spacers to maintain consistent height. Threaded the wire through the second pin ring. Continued tension. Didn't tie it yet. Position 3. Wire running parallel to the defensive line. Consistent height. Consistent tension. Position 4, position 5, position 6. The wire now connected all 6 grenades in series. Pulling any section of wire would create tension throughout the system. All 6 pins would pull simultaneously. Kowalski tested the tension by hand. Gripped the wire between positions 3 and 4. Pulled gently. Felt resistance. The wire was taut, but not under dangerous tension. Wind wouldn't trigger it. Normal ground settling wouldn't trigger it. But a man's boot catching the wire would generate sufficient force. Approximately 5 pounds of sudden force from a walking stride. More than enough to pull 6 pins. The system was armed. 23:45 hours. Kowalski crawled back to his foxhole. Russo was waiting. Is it done? It's done. How does it work? Germans walk through the perimeter. Wire catches their legs, pulls the pins, grenades detonate. Germans die. What if we trigger it? We don't walk forward. We stay in the foxhole. What if someone from another squad walks through? Nobody walks through, not at night. That's standing orders. Everyone stays in position after dark. Russo looked out into the darkness, couldn't see anything. The grenade perimeter was invisible. I can't see the wire. That's the point. How do you know it's there? I just installed it. What if you forgot where it is? I didn't forget. Russo shook his head. Rodriguez is going to court-martial you. Only if it doesn't work. What if it works and he court-martials you anyway? Then at least Germans died first. September 15th, 0 hours through 2:30 hours. 2 hours 30 minutes of waiting. Kowalski's hands smelled like copper wire and friction tape adhesive. His fingernails were black with French mud. His field jacket was filthy. His knees were bruised from crawling. Russo kept looking at him, then looking away. Neither man spoke much. The night was cold, 43 degrees, no moon. Visibility maybe 10 feet in the absolute darkness. Perfect conditions for German infiltration. Kowalski thought about the mathematics. 6 grenades, 21 ounces each, 126 ounces total. 7.8 pounds of grenades. 2 ounces of explosive per grenade. 12 ounces of explosive total. 12 ounces of EC powder detonating simultaneously. Thousands of steel fragments traveling at 4,000 feet per second. Overlapping kill zones, covering 200 square feet. More firepower than the entire platoon's rifles combined. More lethal than a mortar barrage. More sudden than artillery. All triggered by a boot catching a wire. Mechanical defense. Automatic protection. Didn't require Kowalski to see Germans. Didn't require him to react faster than physics. Just required Germans to approach. They would approach. They always did. At 02:15 hours, Russo whispered, "I hear something." Kowalski listened. Movement. North side. Maybe 40 yards out. Multiple contacts. Boots on wet grass. Equipment shifting. Whispered commands in German. Standard German infiltration team. Coming directly toward the perimeter. At 02:38 hours, the movement was closer. 35 yards. Then 30. Then 25. Kowalski gripped his M1 Garand. 8 rounds loaded. Safety off. He couldn't see the tripwire in darkness. Couldn't see the Germans either. Had to trust the system. Trust the wire. Trust the grenades. Trust the mathematics. 20 yards out. The German voices stopped. Complete silence. Standard procedure. Pause. Listen. Advance. 15 seconds passed. Then the Germans moved again. Professional. Careful. Experienced. Inside 25 feet now. Kowalski heard boots scraping mud. 20 feet. Almost at the perimeter. 02:47 hours. Metallic sound. Wire catching a boot. Kowalski recognized it instantly. The sound of tension increasing on copper wire. The sound of 6 grenade pins being pulled simultaneously. 1 second of silence. Then the world exploded. 02:47 hours and 31 seconds. The first grenade detonated at the left end of the perimeter. Position 1. Orange flash. Pressure wave. The explosion was massive, sudden, absolute. Before the sound reached Kowalski's ears, the second grenade detonated. Position 2. 12 feet right of the first, then the third, fourth, fifth, sixth. 6 M2 fragmentation grenades in 1.3 seconds. Overlapping explosions. Continuous roar. The blast waves merged into a single sustained pressure front that slammed into Kowalski's foxhole like a physical blow. He felt it in his chest, in his teeth, in his bones. Shrapnel screamed through the air. Thousands of steel fragments traveling at 4,000 feet per second. The sound was like tearing metal, like industrial machinery destroying itself, like nothing Kowalski had ever heard in combat. The night turned orange, then white, then orange again. Russo was screaming something. Kowalski couldn't hear him. His ears were ringing from the pressure, from 6 grenades detonating 20 feet away. Dirt rained down, debris, fragments of wood, metal, equipment. Something hit Kowalski's helmet with enough force to snap his head sideways. He tasted blood, had bitten his tongue. For 3 seconds, the battlefield was daylight bright. Kowalski saw German soldiers, 11 of them. Some were down, some were running, some were crawling, some weren't moving at all. The ones running were panicked. No formation, no coordination, just terror and survival instinct. Secondary explosions. German grenades detonating on their web gear. Hit by shrapnel from Kowalski's perimeter. The stick grenades had wooden handles filled with high explosive. When shrapnel penetrated them, they detonated. 3 secondary explosions in rapid succession. More screaming. German voices, high-pitched, desperate. Return fire from other American foxholes. M1 Garand rifles, bar automatic rifles. Thompson submachine guns, everyone shooting at the illuminated targets. The Germans who could run were running. Northwest. Back toward their lines. The ones who couldn't run were dying. Kowalski raised his M1, sighted on a German soldier 30 yards out, moving left to right. Kowalski led the target, squeezed trigger. The rifle kicked. The German went down. Russo was firing too. Wild shots, not aiming, just shooting into the darkness where Germans had been. More return fire from the platoon. Tracer rounds arcing through the night. Red lines in the darkness. Most missed. Some connected. Germans fell. The firefight lasted 16 seconds from first grenade to last shot. Then silence. Absolute silence except for the ringing in Kowalski's ears. 02:48 hours. Kowalski's hands were shaking. Not from fear, from adrenaline, from the pressure waves, from firing his rifle. He could smell everything. Burned explosive, cordite, copper, blood, torn earth. Something else. Something organic and terrible. Russo was still screaming. Kowalski grabbed his shoulder. "Cease fire! Cease fire!" Russo stopped shooting, looked at Kowalski with wild eyes. "What the hell was that?" Other American voices calling out from adjacent foxholes. "Who set off grenades?" "Contact north side. Kowalski's position." "Anyone hit?" Rodriguez's voice cut through the confusion. Loud, command voice, staff sergeant voice. "Cease fire! Cease fire! Sound off by position." Each foxhole reported in sequence. "First squad, position 1, all secure." "First squad, position 2, all secure." "Second squad, position 1, all secure." The callouts continued. 12 foxholes, 24 men, everyone alive, nobody wounded, no American casualties. Rodriguez again. "What happened?" Kowalski keyed his radio. Field telephone connected to the platoon command post. "Germans hit my tripwire, Sergeant." Long pause. 3 seconds. Maybe 4. "What tripwire?" "The one I rigged yesterday, Sergeant." Another pause. Longer this time. "The one I specifically ordered you not to rig?" "Yes, Sergeant." Kowalski heard Rodriguez exhale, heard the frustration, heard the anger. Heard something else too, maybe relief, maybe respect. Hard to tell. "Stay in position. We'll discuss this at dawn." "Understood, Sergeant." 0250 hours through 0500 hours. 2 hours, 10 minutes of waiting. No German movement. No counterattack. No follow-up infiltration. The Germans had learned their lesson. Whatever had just killed their soldiers was something they didn't understand. Something they didn't want to encounter again. Kowalski reloaded his M1. 7 rounds expended. 1 remaining. He topped off the magazine. 8 rounds ready. Russo sat with his back against the foxhole wall, hands still shaking. "How many did we get?" "Don't know yet. Can't see them in the dark." It sounded like a lot. It was. "Are you going to get court-martialed?" "Probably." "Was it worth it?" Kowalski thought about Hayes and Beck, about Chen and Mitchell, about the 4 men who died because they couldn't see threats in darkness. Yes. At 0500 hours, first light appeared on the eastern horizon. Gray, thin, just enough to see shapes, shadows. Kowalski looked at his perimeter, looked at what 6 grenades had done to 23 German soldiers. 0530 hours, full sunrise, clear morning, temperature 48 degrees, light wind from the west. Rodriguez approached Kowalski's foxhole. Lieutenant James Morrison was with him. Platoon commander, 24 years old, West Point, class of 1942, 2 years younger than Kowalski, but 4 ranks higher. Morrison wore clean fatigues. Rodriguez's were muddy. Morrison was an officer. Rodriguez was a soldier. The difference showed. Both men stopped at the edge of Kowalski's foxhole. Both stared at the kill zone. 23 German bodies. Most were within 15 feet of the detonation points. The grenades had caught them in the open. No cover, no warning, no chance. Shrapnel had shredded uniforms, equipment, flesh. Several bodies were missing limbs, arms, legs. One German soldier was missing everything below the waist, just torso and head remaining. The ground was cratered. 6 overlapping blast craters, each approximately 4 feet in diameter, 2 feet deep. Scorched earth, torn grass, fragments of steel embedded in mud, blood everywhere. Dark pools, splash patterns, trails where wounded Germans had tried to crawl away before dying. The smell was overwhelming. Copper, iron, bowels, death. Rodriguez walked the perimeter slowly, examined each crater, found remains of the wooden stakes, found fragments of the M2 grenades, found the copper wire. Sections of it were still intact. Other sections had been torn apart by the explosions. He picked up a piece of wire, studied it, looked back at Kowalski. "You rigged this after I ordered you not to." "Yes, Sergeant." "You violated Field Manual 5-31. "Yes, Sergeant." "You installed unauthorized explosive devices in a defensive position." "Yes, Sergeant." Rodriguez dropped the wire, looked at the German bodies again, counted them silently. 23 of them." "Yes, Sergeant." 23 dead Germans from one tripwire system." "Yes, Sergeant." Morrison spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet, controlled, West Point trained. "How long did the engagement last, Staff Sergeant?" 19 seconds, sir. From first grenade detonation to final ceasefire." 19 seconds. "Yes, sir." Morrison walked closer to the nearest German body. Wehrmacht infantry. Experienced soldier. Good equipment. Clean uniform before the grenades hit. The man's rank insignia showed Obergefreiter. Corporal. Combat veteran. Not green troops, not conscripts, not rear echelon support personnel. These were frontline soldiers, professionals. Men who'd been killing Americans successfully for weeks. Morrison examined the corporal's equipment. Stick grenades on his belt, MP-40 submachine gun, entrenching tool, gas mask canister, full combat load. "They came prepared?" "Yes, sir." "How many were in the infiltration team?" Kowalski had counted during the firefight, counted the shapes illuminated by grenade flashes. 11 visible during the explosion, sir. Some may have escaped. Most didn't." Rodriguez was walking the perimeter again, counting bodies, checking each one. He stopped, looked back toward Kowalski. "I count 23 bodies, no wounded, no survivors within the perimeter." Morrison turned to Rodriguez. "Sergeant, how many men did we lose last night?" "0, sir." "How many wounded?" "0, sir." "How many German casualties?" 23 confirmed dead, sir. Possibly more that withdrew." Morrison pulled a notebook from his field jacket, wrote details, time, location, casualties, method. He looked up at Kowalski. "Staff Sergeant, you're either getting court-martialed or getting a medal. I'll let the captain decide which." 0600 hours. Word spread through the platoon before breakfast. Kowalski's foxhole had killed 23 Germans in 19 seconds. 0 American casualties, tripwire grenades, mechanical defense, automatic system. Soldiers came to look at the kill zone, quietly, respectfully. They walked the perimeter, looked at the bodies, looked at the craters, tried to understand what had happened. Private Eddie Morrison from 3rd Squad approached Kowalski. Same name as the soldier who'd survived Chen's death. Different person. "Sergeant, can you show me how you rigged it?" "That's classified until command makes a decision." I want to do the same thing at my position. Talk to your squad leader. But more soldiers asked. 10 men, then 15. By 0700 hours, half the platoon wanted to know how Kowalski had built the system. Rodriguez pulled Kowalski aside. Don't teach anyone else until command decides. If this thing blows up in our faces, I don't want 30 court-martials, just one. Understood, Sergeant? Off the record? Yes, Sergeant. That was the best defensive innovation I've seen in 10 years of service. Rodriguez walked away before Kowalski could respond. 0730 hours. Graves' registration arrived. 2-man team with a truck. Their job was processing enemy dead, searching bodies, collecting intelligence, recording casualties. Corporal Vincent Hayes from New Jersey led the team. No relation to the Hayes who died on September 11th. Just unfortunate name coincidence. Hayes walked the perimeter, looked at each body, made notes. 23 confirmed German casualties, all killed by fragmentation. Probable cause, multiple M2 grenades detonated simultaneously. He looked at Kowalski. How many grenades? 6. 6 grenades killed 23 men? Yes. That's a 4-to-1 kill ratio per grenade. Standard M2 casualty rate is 0.8-to-1 in defensive positions. You achieved 5 times normal effectiveness. Hayes made more notes. Technical assessment. Statistical analysis. The kind of report that would reach battalion, maybe regiment, maybe higher. Someone at division is going to want to talk to you, Sergeant. I figured. They're going to ask how you did this. I'll tell them. They're also going to ask why you violated regulations. I'll tell them that too. Hayes finished his notes, signaled his partner to begin loading bodies. The work was grim, mechanical. They'd done it hundreds of times. 23 more German soldiers going into the statistical record. 23 families in Germany who'd received telegrams. 23 names added to casualty lists. 23 men who'd been alive at 0247 hours. Dead by 0248, 19 seconds from life to death. Because a Ford mechanic understood that mechanical systems could kill faster than human reflexes. 0800 hours. Captain Robert Hendricks arrived. Company commander, 32 years old. Virginia, ROTC commission from Virginia Military Institute. 3 years in service, good officer, respected. Hendricks examined the kill zone silently, walked the perimeter twice, studied the craters, looked at the wire fragments, looked at Kowalski. Explain exactly what you built. Kowalski explained. The stakes, the grenades, the wire, the tension system, the automatic trigger, the mathematics. Hendricks listened without interrupting. When Kowalski finished, Hendricks asked one question. Why did you violate Sergeant Rodriguez's direct order? Because the order was wrong, sir. That's not your determination to make, Staff Sergeant. With respect, sir, it was. Rodriguez wasn't in my foxhole, wasn't responsible for defending my position. I was. The threat was mechanical. The solution had to be mechanical. Waiting for official approval meant more Americans would die. So you took matters into your own hands? Yes, sir. Hendricks looked at Rodriguez, looked at Morrison, looked back at Kowalski. You understand this is a court-martial offense? Yes, sir. You understand I could have you arrested right now? Yes, sir. You also understand you just killed 23 Germans without losing a single American soldier? Yes, sir. Hendricks pulled his own notebook, wrote details, timestamp, names, technical specifications. I'm forwarding this to battalion. They'll forward it to regiment. Regiment will send it to division. Someone above my pay grade will decide what happens to you. Understood, sir. Until then, You're restricted to company area. No more unauthorized innovations. No teaching other soldiers your system. Clear? Clear, sir. Hendricks turned to leave. Stopped. Looked back. Off the record, Staff Sergeant? Yes, sir. If I were in your position, I'd have done the same thing. Hendricks walked away. Rodriguez looked at Kowalski. Said nothing. Didn't need to. The system worked. 23 dead Germans proved it. Now command would decide if saving American lives was worth violating regulations, if innovation was worth the risk of court-martial, if one mechanic's trap could change how the Army defended positions at night. The answer would come from battalion within 48 hours. Until then, Kowalski waited.